Everything that you're worried about is going to be gone like that. The people that are criticizing you, they're going to be gone, you're going to be gone. Worry and concern over how are people viewing me? Someone said something bad about me and you get so upset about it is wasted time and energy. Marcus Aurelius says your only focus should be on getting better at what you're doing. Focus on what you're doing, get better at what you're doing. Everything else is a complete waste of time.
People think of anxiety as something inside their head. That's not right. You're anxious when everything around you is coming apart. The anxiety is a reflection of that. Now, you can find yourself in situations where your physiological state or your psychological state makes you overreact to uncertainty in the environment. Generally, for example, when someone develops major depressive disorder, it's in the aftermath of something truly awful.
Some things are up to us, some things are not up to us. It's as simple as that. Epictetus says our chief task in life is to discern what is up to us, what's not up to us, and then what? Focus entirely on what's up to you. That's what Stoicism is, focusing on what's in your control, ignoring the rest. Does that mean you don't care about what's happening in the world? No, of course not. The Stoic doesn't despair that there are collective action problems. They just focus on what you can do about that problem instead of wasting time, energy, etc., bemoaning, wailing, trying impossible solutions. We focus on where we can make a difference. We focus on what we have power over, and that's where we put our time and energy.
If you do not have clear goals for your life, you are condemned forever to work for those who do. You see, in life, it's very simple. Either you are working toward the accomplishment of your goals, or you're working toward the accomplishment of other people's goals.
Most people walk around with no goals, no ambition. They don't know where they're going. It's like a ship with no destination. If you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. Once you know where you want to go, then you direct your time, your energy, and your attention to the execution and the achievement of that goal. If you want to make money, you will make money.
The latest research in neuroscience says you can change your brain just by thinking. So then as you begin to think about a new possibility and your brain begins to fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, and you begin to plan your behaviors and you begin to review in your mind, mentally rehearse who you're going to be in your life. The mere action of mental rehearsal begins to install the neurological circuits in your brain. Now your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's in fact a map to the future. And over again, when people do this, it may take them months to turn their disease around. But over and over again, we've seen this. We've seen it enough times now to know that people reach a certain point with themselves where they feel so whole. They feel so satisfied with who they are. They feel so happy with themselves and their lives that they could care less if they have the disease. And that's the moment it goes away. And if you're not thinking about your back pain, you're not thinking about your problems, you're not thinking about your coworkers, you're not thinking about all the errands you need to run, you're not thinking about your cell phone, if you're no longer activating those circuits in your brain, as you suppress this neocortex, the memory bank of your identity, you move from beta brainwave patterns to alpha brainwave patterns. And as the brain starts to integrate, as the brain starts to become more coherent, and as the heart starts to resonate and more balance, all of a sudden now, your brain slows down into low alpha and ultimately into theta. And in theta, there's very little activity in your thinking brain. And in a sense, the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open. And you are conscious in your subconscious mind. And in this realm, we call this the fourth dimension. Why? Because Einstein said E equals mc squared. When you take matter and you bring it up to the speed of light, it's going to turn into energy. So the ceiling of this three-dimensional reality is the speed of light. And when you become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, that's the moment you're no longer your body. That's the moment you're no longer your identity.
Let me show you how drifting begins. A man builds belief for 21 days. He feels stronger. He begins to change. But then he says, "I'm doing well. I'll take a night off." That night turns into 3, then a week, then a month. The momentum is lost. The voice of doubt returns. The old habits reappear, and he wonders why he feels like his old self again. The answer is simple. He stopped repeating, he stopped affirming, he stopped commanding his identity, and the subconscious, having no new instructions, reverted to the last known identity. But not you. You will not drift. You have come too far. You understand now that consistency is the only true power. You will speak these phrases every night, not because it feels good, but because it builds good. And you are no longer interested in comfort. You are devoted to transformation.
But guess what happens? That alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m. to train. I don't want to be a SEAL today. Or I don't want to be whatever today. I'll start tomorrow. And that's the usual pattern of people's lives. That's why until you really want to do something, you're always going to be a talker.
Discipline is art. Yeah, I think it is, because it's beautiful for me to see. When I see someone who's really truly disciplined, who like a David Goggins, someone who just like truly maximizes the grind, I feel like there's an art to that.
If you can't control your own mouth, then what can you control? You can't control your emotions. You can't control your behavior. It signals weakness and insecurity. Whereas talking less, you're not going to say something stupid. And then when you do speak, it's going to carry a lot of weight. Talking less creates an aura of power. It makes you look larger than you actually are. It makes people think he or she is mysterious. When you talk a lot, I don't know if you've noticed this, but people who talk a lot, there's something insecure about them. It seems like an unimportant law. It's actually extremely important to understand the psychology, what gives the aura of power and what doesn't.
What's, when you say Luciferian intellect, what's that?
The Luciferian intellect is the intellect that wants to place itself in the highest position. And there's lots of people, smart people tend to be Luciferian because they think that their fundamental value is their intelligence. And they think that intelligence is the fundamental value. And then they're often very annoyed if they're very bright and the world doesn't lay itself out at their feet because they think, well, I'm so smart, everything should just be coming my way. Because they've prided themselves on that. It's like, well, and intellectual pride, well, that might be the cardinal sin. The Luciferian intellect is the intellect that wants to put itself in the highest position. It challenges God. That's what Satan is. That's what Lucifer is, literally, in the Miltonian story, is Lucifer is the spirit who attempts to usurp God. That's what the communists did. That's what the fascists did. That's what we do when we build towers of Babel. And we can easily elevate the intellect to the highest possible place, especially smart people. They do that all the time. It's better to attend to what you don't know. This is why Rogan's a very good example of this, because Rogan is not an intellectual. He's a seeker. Those aren't the same thing. Rogan is always like a bloodhound. He's on the path of what he doesn't know. And the consequence of that is he knows a lot. 2,000 podcasts, 2,500 podcasts. He's done like 2,500 high-level graduate seminars, something like that. It's crazy. And so his questions get better and better as he fills in the gaps. Is it intellectual? No, it's not. It's there's a difference between an intellectual pursuit and a spiritual pursuit. And the remediation of your own ignorance is a spiritual pursuit. It's predicated on humility. How am I stupid? How can I fix that? One of the things I really taught my kids, tried to teach them, was ask stupid questions, right? And that means you have to admit to your own insufficiency. That's what humility is. And then you have to publicly announce it. Here's how I'm stupid. Can you fix me? And sometimes that is embarrassing, although much less frequently than people think. Usually, if you're in a crowd and you have a stupid question and you've been paying attention, 80% of the crowd has the same question. And they're relieved that, you asked it. In fact, they'll think you're brave. It's so interesting, because you're afraid when you ask a question, if you're in a university seminar, you're afraid that what you're going to do is expose your stupidity and be, what would you say, shamed. And what happens is exactly the opposite, is everybody who's too cowardly to ask that question now thinks that you're courageous. It's exactly the opposite of what you think.
Stop putting on airs. Stop
puffing yourself up. The number one impediment to growth and knowledge, Zeno said, was conceit. Ego is the enemy, right? You can't learn that which you think you already know. When you are puffing yourselves up, when you're proud of all that you have accomplished, you know what you're doing? You're not getting better. You're not growing. You're becoming self-satisfied and complacent instead of focusing on all the work that you have to do, on all the things you still have in common with other people.
Discipline your thoughts. Stop thinking too much. Don't go into the past. Don't go into the future. Be in the present. Why? Because only then it's possible that the mind is free, the capacity is free, and now you can completely immerse into whatever you are doing. And this means you have arrived.